I have a couple things that I want to talk about in this video. It has been a while, so a little bit of an update about how I have seen my painting practice change over the past 6 months or so. First and foremost, I've noticed I've been painting a lot larger paintings. I've been gravitating towards much larger canvases, and I think that's for two reasons. The first one's pretty obvious. I have a dedicated painting space now, so I actually have the space for larger works. Kind of related to that, and also perhaps because of that, I've noticed my style changing a lot lately. When I first started painting, I aspired towards realism. I mean, the progression there seems pretty organic. From the goal of a realistic depiction of nature to a more individualized artistic expression. And that change, that evolution or devolution, whatever you want to call it, has been happening exponentially lately in my art. Lately, I have just felt very bored by the attempt at realism. Just a crude rendition of life has become very boring to me. And this is something that I've noticed for at least a year now. I've noticed that the paintings that strike me most and that resonate with me most are those that demonstrate a tremendous amount of technical skill while also somehow appearing as if they were created in just a moment, a burst of creative energy, you know, but they weren't. And like I can tell that they weren't because of the techniques that were used and the like, and it's for that reason that I find them so striking and so moving. It's not a mere recreation or mimicking of life itself, you know. We have cameras for that. Which is not to say that realism doesn't require a tremendous amount of technical skill. It does, and I respect that. I do still paint stuff like that, but I always want to add something more on top of that. It's never just the mere mimicking of life. It has, for me at this point in my practice, it has to go a little bit further than that. So that's that. Lately I've been working with a lot more textured brush strokes, a lot looser of brush strokes. Maybe I'll show you some examples. I'll be right back. Okay, so some examples. I've been doing a lot of wacky portraits lately, mostly self-portraits because I spend too much time alone and I don't have anyone else to paint. If you want me to paint your portrait, send me a message, I don't know, because I'm getting kind of bored of looking at my face. But this is a good example of kind of what I've been doing lately. Here's another example of kind of the stuff I've been doing lately. Lots of texture. I don't know if you can see it, but stuff like that I've been gravitating towards more, I guess. So those are the ways that my practice has changed. As I continue on, I do want to do more realistic studies alongside some of the wackier, more abstract paintings that I'm doing and enjoying and kind of gravitating towards doing, just so I can maintain the technical skills that I have learned over the years. Sorry I keep licking my lips are really chapped, but I don't know where my chapstick is, so sorry, but at the end of the day, I just want to tell you guys some stuff. On a completely unrelated note, I also want to talk to you all today about my current work in progress, this painting behind me, another door painting, but quite a different one. Actually, maybe, you know what, it is time to show you guys the door that's in front of me. So when I first moved to Berlin, I was working on that painting. I was becoming so bored with it because it just felt like it didn't really say anything to me. I mean, the image itself was interesting, so it's nice to look at and perhaps draws the viewer in that way, but it didn't really say anything. In all of the time that I've been painting, the images that I paint, they have an abstract meaning or an abstract goal. If a painting that I made resonated with anyone, that was enough for me. With the original door painting, I received so many messages about all of the meanings that people had given this painting. Some people thought it reminded them of home, of their childhood home, their grandparents' house, of autumn, of homesickness. Other people saw it as ominous and kind of threatening and foreboding. So completely different interpretations of it, but all of them to me were correct. For me, back then, it was less about, like, I never started a painting with the idea of, okay, I want to communicate this, or I want this image to be able to say this to the viewer, or represent this. It was never that. It was just the fact that it could mean anything was enough to me. Yeah, that was sufficient for me to feel like a painting was successful, if it resonated with someone in some way. But now it's quite different. And this painting in particular has shown me that. I was showing this painting to a friend of mine. For the past week or two, this painting has been at the stage where every time I keep working on it, I think I'm just making it worse and worse. And I was talking to him about this, just saying like, maybe I should just push through that. And that's, you know, that would be the thing that really takes my paintings to the next level, if I push through that fear of making it worse and actually make it better. And so I sent him a picture of it, and he told me that anytime I see a painting of the female form, I ask myself, if a man painted this, you know, what if a man painted this? Basically, he was saying that when he looks at paintings of the female form, he asks himself, would I be annoyed if a man painted this? And for my painting, the answer for him would be yes. Basically, the idea there being that male painters are more likely to paint the female body in a hypersexualized or erotic manner, and that is annoying. That immediately struck me as very wrong and very frustrating, and it was wrong because, to me, it's much less about who painted it and more so about how the viewer interprets it. So if he was interpreting it or viewing it as, oh, this was probably created as an erotic image, that's on the viewer. But it was frustrating because of the kind of philosophy I was explaining a couple minutes ago, that whatever the viewer interprets a painting as, that is what it means. So even though I don't intend this to be, you know, a crude depiction of sexuality or eroticism, if the viewer sees it that way, that's what it means to them. That's why it was so frustrating to me, because he was wrong in the sense of that's not what this painting is supposed to mean in my eyes as the artist, but that is what it means to probably a lot of people who will see this painting. It was frustrating to hear, but I am very glad that he told me that this was his method of looking at paintings of the female form, even though I have some issues with it, because in a sense he's right. This painting is kind of the first time that I've ever had something that I want it to mean and have taken up the challenge of conveying that meaning and not just whatever the viewer wants it to mean. And it's not something that I had decided at the beginning of starting this painting. It was something that, you know, throughout the course of working on it, this meaning of what it meant to me emerged. And at this point, because the idea of it just being seen as an erotic image is so opposed to that, I want to somehow be able to, through the techniques that I use and the composition of the painting, be able to convey that although the colors and the pose of this painting would suggest that it is just a crude depiction of sexuality or eroticism, that it is something distinctly different. And I'm stepping up to the challenge, okay? I think the first step, obviously, is rendering the face more... Oh, I have a quote to share about this. Hold on. Okay, so, boom. Berger, I don't know how to say his name. I'm leaning towards Berger. But anyways, Way of Seeing, great book if you haven't read it. Page 54. To be naked is to be oneself. To be nude is to be seen naked by others and yet not recognized for oneself. A naked body has to be seen as an object in order to become a nude. The sight of it as an object stimulates the use of it as an object. Nakedness reveals itself. Nudity is placed on display. To be naked is to be without disguise. To be on display is to have the surface of one's own skin, the hairs on one's own body, turned into a disguise which, in that situation, can never be discarded. The nude is condemned to never being naked. Nudity is a form of dress. Okay, so when he told me this was the first thing that came up in my mind. And in this book, he does have some ways that he, proposes distinguishing nude paintings from naked paintings. And that's the problem, is that to me, this image it's not a nude painting, it's a naked painting. But it looks like a nude painting, you know what I mean? I mean, she's showing her boobs. So that seems pretty like, hey, look at my body, and female nipples can't be anything but a sexual object. Am I right? I'm joking if you didn't notice. To me, what this image represents is, it represents being profoundly at home in one's body, in spite of one's sexuality, and not because of it. Those are two very different things. I do understand that based on the pose and the colors and everything, it would suggest that it's just, you know, oh look, a painting of a woman with her boobs out because women are hot. Cool, you know, but I think if I'm able to capture the character and the outlook of the subject in the painting, I'll be able to convey that it's something much more than that. And it's not anything about sexuality or feminism or female empowerment through one's sexuality. It's nothing about that. You have the form of a body depicted in a very abstract or chaotic way, very chaotic brushstrokes, squiggly lines, every which way, enclosed in a very orderly border, you know, the door frame itself. So the painting at the most basic level is the form refusing conformity. It's chaos enclosed in order, in structure. And if you want to read it in a feminist light, you can. That basically, despite the pose itself, the most authentic form of feminism, in, I guess, an existentialist sense, is transcending the societal structures that are imposed upon women, and in the same sense as I said before, being and becoming exactly what you are and what you want to be, in spite of being a woman and not because of it. To me, the most authentic form of femininity is just being, just existing, and not refusing or denying the fact that I'm a woman, but it's just kind of a fact of my existence. I don't know. Besides the point, that doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, I don't want this to be anything feminist, you know? The chaos existing and transcending order, the form refusing conformity idea here, for me, is much more an existential one. We as human beings transcend the limits of our own existence. The body is the vessel through which we discover, encounter, and experience the world and everything within the world and everyone else within the world. The way in which we interact with and exist in the world couldn't be possible without the body, but at the same time, it is a factor that restricts or encloses our existence, you know. It's the door frame around the chaos. And why is it the door frame around the chaos? Because most of the things that we do as human beings to establish meaning in our lives transcend the body in some way. Me writing philosophy or poetry or creating art, those are all ways that I step outside of myself and transcend my material form to create meaning in the world. And in order to do that, you have to go beyond just the body, you know. Otherwise, we would just be like rocks, you know. Rocks are completely at home in their physical form. But they can't, as far as we know, rocks do not transcend their material existence to establish meaning in their lives in the same way that humans do. Animals, maybe, but as far as we know currently, maybe not. To me, this painting is much more about that. You can read it in a feminist light, you can read it in an existentialist light, you can also read it in more of a semantic light, you know, that when the words that I write on a page and the meaning that initially come from those words, you know, the surface meaning of the words, there's much more that's between the lines. It's the connotation of the words, it's the etymology of the words, it's how the words make you feel as they are constructed in the sentence, their relation to the words next to each other. The meaning itself is something beyond the text, you know. There's something much more there that can't really be encapsulated in just the words. There's something that's said and ought to be said and maybe also can't be said that definitely can't be said in words, but it's still worth trying. But, you know, that's what painting is all about. And so it's an image of the form fully aware of these limitations, but also joyfully resisting them. Joyfully existing, not to resist them, but it almost happens naturally, I don't know. There are limits to what human beings can understand, but in our lives we attempt in a manifold of different ways to transcend the limitations that are put upon us, to say the unsayable, to accomplish things that go far beyond the abilities that are given to us by our physical bodies alone, you know. Yeah, I guess this is a new problem that I'm encountering, actually trying to convey something, a message that even here I'm not able to express to you all in a concise and clear manner, but that's kind of the nature of these things, you know. I mean, in my opinion, philosophy in its most ideal form is chaos. It's confusion it's the aporia, Unheimlichkeit, all those fun things. And I want my art to say that. That's kind of what's been going on over here. Hopefully you've been able to make it through this video, and if you have, thanks, and hopefully this was somehow insightful or useful to you, and if not, thanks for listening to me ramble on for however long this video ends up being, and hope everyone is having a good time, and thanks for watching.